welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard. I'll be your host for December. Jingle, 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 jingle. The holidays are coming. No, we're not doing that. That's not good. That's not good. Anyway, I'm not sitting in the living room tonight. I'm not sitting in the lounge tonight. I'm not even standing in my kitchen. I'm kind of in a side room, and that's because I'm getting joined by Dustin Culbertson from Side Room Games, and that's like the worst connection ever, but we're just gonna run with it because we don't care.
I think it's
fine. Nobody's gonna notice, it's all good. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Richard. Appreciate it.
It's you kind of emailed us a little while ago to say, because I put a call out on Twitter that said, look, if anybody wants to come on the show, drop us an email and we shall arrange to have you on the show. So you dropped an email and here we are. So it just goes to show. I'm always worried about people I'm not going to email them. I don't want to email them. I've listened to the show and I'm definitely not going to email them after listening to the show. So it's nice to have you.
I'm a fan of the show, so I was like, well, sure, I'd love to get on there.
Thank you very much. We should say hello to everybody who is out there. The reason that we do this is quite simply because if you like doing something, you might as well do it. That's one of the good reasons for doing it. The second reason is that Dustin has got a Kickstarter coming out, but not until 2019, not until into February. But basically, earlier on this year, he rather successfully funded a Kickstarter game called Black Sonata. So we're going to talk about his new game. We're going to talk about his old game. We're also going to talk an awful lot about him. So we're going to have a little bit of a peek back into ye olde English of the past. Before we
this is your life.
Before we stare at the Midsummer Night's Dream of the present, before we disappear off into the side room of the future. I didn't know where that was going. I've no idea whatsoever. Do you want to tell us a little bit? A little bit about your history with the hobby.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Like most people, I think, I've been playing games my whole life. Mostly, actually, when I was a kid, we played a lot of card games. So, like Cribbage, Hearts. Our favorite actually was Pitch. We'd play that until the wee hours of the night on the weekends with my dad and my sister and my stepmom. And so, when I got a little bit older, when I was, I had some friends who introduced me to Settlers of Catan. And the first time I played it, it was a Cities and Knights variant. And so that's kind of how I learned that one, and that kind of opened me up to the hobby games. In fact, it was funny, I think I'd played that one probably 2 or 3 times, and I played the vanilla Settlers of Catan, and I'm like, this game's really boring. Where's all this fun stuff that you add to it? But I still have Cities and Knights. We still break it out. That's one of my wife's one of her favorites.
All right.
But yeah, that was kind of the gateway, and then I had a good friend who we played that game a couple times, and then he picked up Chaos in the Old World because he's a big Warhammer guy back when he was younger. So we played that one, and then I think the next one we got was Galaxy Trucker, and then from them it just kind of, just fell off the table, and we just started going bonkers. And then we've been playing mini games, and we did role-playing games for a while, but mostly this, came back to tabletop games consistently. So.
Chaos of the Old World is out of print now. So
yeah, I was telling my buddy, dude, you should probably check eBay because you might be able to get $400 or $500 for that one. You never know. So, but he still got that one.
You can't sell something like that. You can.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, it would be. I know. I mean, there's the two sides. There is the kind of I guess there is that kind of mercenary side to people. You look over your collection, you go oh well, I've got Advanced Space Crusade, so and I've got a 2014 version of Space Hulk, and I was like,
oh nice,
and I was like, oh, do I maybe consider, but there's a lot of history behind it, and then it's I'm not only giving away the game, I'm also for money, but I'm also maybe giving away some memories as well, and when you reach my age, Dustin, I mean, sometimes your memories are all you've got, Do you want to just give it? I don't know. Sometimes I just go through it and just go, I'm going to get rid of the entire lot, and I'm going to sell it for whatever. And then other times it's I can't get rid of this because this was the 13th game that I got through and 13's. I know it's unlucky, but if I get rid of it, then something terrible will kind of
exactly. Yes, your karma will tank.
Exactly.
And you'll be in trouble.
Then anything, I'll get hit by a cat. You know, anything that could happen. So did you do the normal route? Did you kind of start off playing and then did you drift away from the hobby, or have you kind of steadily kind of kept going?
It's been pretty consistent. I mean, kind of once I played Settlers and we kind of got into it, we've been pretty consistent in it. Our game nights are not as frequent as obviously we'd like. With I have kids, and Mike, one of our other guys in side room, is expecting his first kid here pretty soon. But we still try to get together at least once a month, if not more. Mm. And then the good thing is that both Mike and I work in the same area, and then one of our friends who's part of the game company, Alan, he actually works pretty close to us, so usually he'll come and we'll, usually at least once a week, if not more than that, at lunch they'll come over and we'll play games. And so we've actually been playing through Gloomhaven. We've gotten quite a ways into that one, and we've been playing like it. We'll have play at lunch, and maybe 2 lunch breaks, we'll be able to finish a session, and so we've been marching along through that campaign.
What is it you do?
I work for the Air Force, actually, so I'm out in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
right.
And they have an Air Force base here, and I was active duty Air Force for 4 years, and then basically for the last, 10 years, I've been as a civilian working for them. So I work in their research lab. I've been doing modeling, simulation, and analysis for a long time, so I've been just kind of doing that here for them for, like I said, I think the last at least 12 years I've been doing that, so.
That sounds very, very technical, and it also sounds like you might have Matthew Broderick from War Games technically hacking your network.
That's pretty much it. It's pretty entertaining because we do a lot of basically a lot of wargaming and stuff like that, and so we actually look at some. Basically, we're in the research lab for the Air Force, and so we look at future concepts that they might potentially want to develop, systems.
Right.
And so we look at them, evaluate how useful they would end up being, for compared to other things we have. So it's pretty interesting. They get some pretty cool stuff going on.
Cool. I'll try not to put on the squeaky voice. Do you have you ever tried helium? Does that mean that in terms of the kind of the game design side of things, do you see the kind of the two ever kind of cross over? I'm not saying it's like, okay, well, we could put some miniature drones here, but we could bring in an orc. I think that would be an orc.
Well, it's actually
wings.
Funny, I think, since we haven't really designed any games, we've just been picking up other people's designs, but I think the big benefit is, most of my time, especially like here recently, has been mostly like project management and program management. Mm-hmm. So the experience of hey, this is how you run projects and how you maintain schedules and track progress and stuff like that. I'm like, I can actually use those skills for something that's more entertaining, so I can use it for the board game side. And so that's actually been pretty helpful. Does
that mean that you're a master of Excel spreadsheets then?
I know my way around a spreadsheet or two. I'll just leave it like that, yeah. So, but that and PowerPoint. PowerPoint, I think, is I'm a PowerPoint ranger. I joke with people that I'm a Microsoft Office engineer, which I don't think is a real thing, but it feels good.
Is that what you've got in your resume? So
yeah, exactly.
You put together a little badge. Here's my enamel badge I got made. It's like, hang on, that's got your name.
I can do Word. Yeah, picking up a publisher and Access. It's going great.
But that does afford you the time where you can sit down with people and actually play on a regular basis, yeah?
Yeah, and that's because once we first started the game company, we did a design contest on Board Game Geek for a 54-card game, and we're actually going to rerun it in March. I think we're going to kick that one off. But it was funny, basically, every lunch session we had, 3-4 times a week, Alan and Mike would come over and we would play through all the different design entries, and some were really good and some weren't as good, but we at least mowed through them all. So it was definitely eye-opening to kind of look at okay, is this game good? Is it publishable? How would you publish it? How would you market it?
Yeah.
And it was kind of an experience to kind of see the development and see potentials with different types of designs that ran across the gamut.
Is it strange giving feedback to somebody's passion project? I mean, let's look at it this way, yeah. Board games or board game design is generally a passion project. I mean, people don't put 80, 100 hours and probably $80 to $100 a month into something and then and keep it going and build it into something unless they've kind of got like a lot of heart behind it. I mean, when you were doing the assessing side of things, did you have to be kind of gentle with how you did the feedback? I mean, did different people have different ways they kind of reacted when you were giving them kind of feedback on their designs?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. We basically told everybody we would play every game, and then we would kind of judge them, and then if they wanted specific feedback on their game, to let us know, and we'd give them the specific feedback. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think probably about half of them, I think, wanted feedback, and some of them, some of them were pretty tough, because it's like, you play the game, you're like, yeah, this really isn't great, and so you're trying to be like, okay, this was kind of good, mm-hmm. and this was kind of good, but here were the other reasons why it didn't really catch us. Mm-hmm. And so we try to be as, as judicious as possible and as nice as possible, but kind of give clear, like, okay, if you're going to keep working on this design, mm-hmm. here's probably what you should focus on. And we tried to do it with all of them. There were a few of them where it's just like, yeah, I don't know what's really going on here, but it's not a game, but thanks for entering it in the contest. So you kind of run into some of those, and you do your best to give them at least some constructive feedback. But no, like I said, it was interesting. Like, I've had a lot of experience in like sort of like the work level, doing like feedback for people as far as their performance, and so again, kind of utilizing those skills I learned somewhere else to try to be as nice and constructive as possible without, breaking somebody's heart. Yeah.
I mean, was that what was behind Side Room Games? Was it all about kind of publishing other people's work as opposed to creating stuff yourself then?
Yeah, so when I first kind of thought about doing this, I had a couple designs I was tinkering with, mm-hmm. and, dove deep into it and read all of, Jamie Stegmaier's blog posts and started researching manufacturers and all this stuff, thinking I was going to publish my own games. Yeah. And then we started playing my designs, and I realized I'm not that good of a game designer. I'm like, oh wow, this game's not great. All right, never mind. But I love like I said, I love the sort of project and business sort of thought process and that portion of it. And so, that's when I kind of approached my buddies, and I was like, why don't we just find good games? And so we decided to run a contest. Yeah. And then as I kind of got to know the design crew that's on the Board Game Geek forums, just saw some great designs, and it's like, wow, like these games really should be published. Like with Black Sonata, for instance, I'm like, I don't understand how this game can't be signed by somebody. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was like, okay, let's try to get with John and figure out if we can make it happen.
So did that take you in the direction of Kickstarter then? I mean, I take it if you're going to be publishing games, I take it the route for you just saying, right, okay, we'll take the design and we'll just go and get 1,000 printed and we'll see how it goes. Is that just a non-starter? I mean, you obviously, unless you've got, I've got spare $10,000 sitting about kind of thing.
Exactly. I think that's the thing now, like, especially for new indie publishers, I just don't see how you do it without Kickstarter. Yeah. I know that a few of the ones have popped up, like Renegade has done pretty good about, actually kind of going quickly from small to big, large scale. Yeah. But yeah, to me right now, it's like Kickstarter is, for good and bad as it is, it's pretty much become the path to be able to publish games, unless you're like one of the big boys. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And even some of the big boys are going to that path, or still go to that path. So, but yeah, we had always along were thinking, okay, let's try Kickstarter, because we back Kickstarters, even before we even thought about having Side Room Games, and so we realized that there was definitely potential, and that's kind of where the market is right now, and so that's kind of where we decided to go through.
Do you back a lot on Kickstarter then? I mean, obviously you mentioned Gloomhaven, but have you got like a kind of a hidden cupboard that you keep all your?
Yeah, I usually either go super big, or I like back like the smaller projects. So like I think the last two projects that I backed, one was like a small card game that just closed out, like Fallen Treasures, I think is what it's called, for I think it was like $12, and I was like, it might be one the kids would like. And then the previous one before that was I went and late pledged for like the Eclipse new edition or whatever, which with everything, so it was like $160 or something like that. And I was like, well, that's my Christmas gift for myself, yay!
I'm just being incredibly generous.
Yeah,
I'm so nice.
I feel like I deserve this year.
I know I've worked incredibly hard, and I deserve some kind of reward for all my hard work.
Exactly. I sent a message to the wife, and I'm like, hey, can I get this for my Christmas gift? And she's like, what is it? And I sent her the link, and then like 5 minutes later, like, guess what you got me for Christmas? She's like, wait a minute.
So how many days did you sleep in the car then after that?
Luckily not too bad, because she's also notorious about, pretty much every day, like, there's some Amazon package that comes in, and I'm like, what's that? And she's like, oh, it's for me, don't worry about it. I'm like, okay.
It's okay, I've bought another cardboard box.
Yeah, exactly. It's just full of
That's
packaging.
just packaging. I bought lots and lots and lots of brown paper, and the ignore the really, really small silver shaped box in there that's got some kind of "it's come from Paris" kind of thing from it.
Yeah, don't worry about that one.
Those are always the scary ones. But I mean, at the moment there is, I must admit, we had to. There was like the buzzer at work went about 5 times today with various kind of Amazon packages arriving in the office, to which the boss is looking at everybody and just saying, "Oh, it's Christmas time." It's like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Definitely is. It's just like, well, why are you not buying stuff for your family? It's like, because it's Christmas time. That's why. And exactly. we're absolutely kind of treating ourselves. Black Sonata, when that came around, what kind of form, when it appeared to you, was it already fully formed? I mean, was it a fully made up, kind of ready to go game?
Yeah. So I think it was an entry in the 2017 solo design contest on Board Game Geek, and it was the big winner. Like, it won pretty much every award that it was entered in by a landslide. And so I had heard about it, and saw like they have, like, usually you'll do a thread, like a work in progress thread on the design forums, and it had just so many different, comments, and I was like, man, this has to be something special. And so got it and did the print and play and printed it out on the computer and cut it up and played it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just blew my mind. I'm like, I've never seen a game like this at all. Like, the mechanic of basically doing a hidden movement game that's a solo game just blew my mind. And then the whole mechanic of using the keyhole cards to look, like, peer through the keyhole to see if you see the silhouette of the Dark Lady.
Yeah.
And if you found her. Just some super unique things, and then like the logical kind of puzzle deduction to figure out who she is based on the symbols you get from other people. The combination, I just never seen anything like it. So I'm like, okay, this is amazing. Like, this game is done, it's polished, and really for the Kickstarter, we didn't make any changes. The only thing we had done is that John had some ideas about how to add another Dark Lady card to the whole to the gamut. And so he was able to figure out sort of how to finalize that, and so we were able to add that in for the Kickstarter and play tested it a few times, and everything was still fully functional, and so that was the only minor change we made between when I first saw the game and what's going to get published.
Yeah, I mean, because it went on to do, like, Rado kind of loved it. I guess because he didn't have to get kind of Jen involved. He said he could just play, he could just kind of like play it himself, which I'm sure he would have been happy, would have been happy about. But I mean, it went on. I mean, it only had like a budget of about $5,000 or something like that, and it went on to do like $91,000. I mean,
yeah,
as a first time kind of creator, was that just? I mean, did that kind of not kind of blow your mind at the time? You kind of like,
oh, it was incredibly overwhelming. Like, it was funny. Like, I had assumed, based on sort of the feedback, and because we were able to get it in front of Rado, and the guys on the Secret Ball podcast mentioned it, I kind of assumed we would fund, and I figured maybe we'd get to, in the, $20K maybe.
Yeah.
$20K range. And that first day, we went through all the stretch goals we had that were up to like 16,000, I think. And so then it was just a mad scramble. It's like, okay, what do we do now? And so I was like frantically emailing the manufacturer. I'm like, what if we did this? And what if we did that? And then it took multiple days to get the quote back. And so like the next couple stretch goals we hit, and we had no idea what they were going to be. We just knew we were going to go through them. And so, yeah, it was crazy how much and how much interest there was in the game. And I think it shows, obviously how great of a design it is, but I also think it shows like, most of these campaigns you see, it's almost like they're focused on a normal game and then they add a solo variant, and that helps get them some audience. Ours is just solo.
Yeah.
Like, this is a game you can play with somebody as a team, but really it's a game for one person. That audience is there, and it's pretty strong. And if you design the right type of game and you get it out there, it's going to be successful. So,
did you do a lot of marketing beforehand then? I mean, this is what people talk. I mean, I wrote an article myself recently about creating noise on Kickstarter. I mean, did you specifically go out and kind of were building as much of a kind of a marketing database, as much of a kind of a community before you even kind of brought Black Sonata to fund?
Yeah, so our idea was, it already kind of had a built-in audience from the contest and from the Board Game Geek, kind of crew. And so what we did was we were like, okay, let's go after the solo game market. And so we got more involved in the solo game group on Facebook, which is a pretty big group. I think it has, like, last time I saw, like maybe 12,000 people or something like that. And we were, and people started hyping it there. And then we also, there's also a print and play group. And so we hyped it up there. And, most of those people might not have backed it, but at least we got the word out, got people understanding the game's coming.
Yeah.
And, from the beginning, we were very adamant that any game we produce, we will have free print and play that will be available both during and then the final version that we actually produce. We'll actually have that print and play available for everybody for free. And so being able to help kind of foster that audience as well. And then the biggest thing I wanted to do on top of that was to get in front of reviewers, because, each reviewer has their own audience. Some audiences overlap, but so we went out and tried to find, who does reviews for solo games, who does small box game reviews. And like I said, between all the different other reviewers we were able to get a hold of, as well as Rado, I think that really helped kind of build the hype and build the audience that was ready to back it, from day one.
Yeah. Was it difficult to get a hold of Rado? Because I know that he is generally really, really busy. I mean, was it? Yeah,
it wasn't too bad. I think I started the conversation. I sent him a geek mail and said, "Hey, we have this game, Black Sonata." I told him kind of the basic mechanics, and he, within like a week or so, he replied back. He said, "Sounds interesting. Send me the rule book, and then I'll let you know if I want to take a look at it."
Yeah.
And a couple weeks went by, and after I sent it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." He didn't want to do a full, I guess it's like full playthrough, but he said he'd do like a rundown, which is like a new. I think we were one of the first ones where he was going to start experimenting with like these shorter videos, like 5 to 10 minute ones, where he kind of does a quick overview of the game and gives his thoughts. And so we're like, "Hey, whatever you do, man, would be fantastic." And so it wasn't actually. I thought it was going to be a little more challenging than it was, but it actually was pretty straightforward. I think the game just kind of caught his eye enough that he was interested and kind of got back to us fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange concept. I mean, looking at it, it's like it's a solo hidden movement game, and I'm like, my brain's saying no.
Exactly.
My brain's saying no. What do you do? Is it hid? Do you get somebody else to hide it?
Well, and that's what's funny, is it's that, and it's also it's deduction and it's replayable, and you're like, but those don't mix. None of that mixes. That doesn't make no sense.
Exactly. There's nothing in my brain at the moment that's saying this. This means anything at all apart from absolute kind of dominating confusion. I'll be completely honest with you at the moment. But as we said, it went on to kind of storm Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And I mean, going back to the stretch goals, did you feel it was a requirement to fill up the kind of the stretch goal meter? Was there a point where you said, look, we can't actually do anything more without kind of stopping, kind of adding value to the kind of the process?
Yeah, for sure. And this game was specifically, it was designed in sort of a tight format. So like we weren't going to be able to add a bunch of new cards or new paths or new boards. And so it's like, okay, what can we do to improve the product as far as like the quality of the components? That was our number one thing. It's like, we're not going to do anything else other than, improve the box, improve the insert, make tuck boxes for the cards. We came up with some ideas late, but then after a while, we kept pondering some other ones here and there, and we're like, you know what? We really like it the way it's at. We think it's going to be exactly what we thought we would, we wanted it to be, so let's just leave it there. And so I think we might have had, the last stretch goal might have been around maybe 60,000 or something like that, and then we're just like, hey, that's the last one, so if you want to back it, great, we appreciate it. And so, but it worked out pretty good. I think our manufacturer, Maquis, has been really just super awesome to work with, and they were very helpful as far as, getting the updated quotes and working with us and explaining how things kind of work, so we had a better understanding of what each one of these meant and how it impacted sort of the overall project.
Do you kind of feel when there's a danger, if you run a successful Kickstarter, to end up overproducing the game? To kind of,
for sure.
To kind of get to the point where you kind of like, I've seen a few games that the game itself maybe didn't deserve to be as produced as much as the gameplay itself kind of warranted it. and it ends up ultimately kind of coating itself in a kind of like a candy goodness, that you end up actually, you're missing the kind of the central peanut, which was the bit you were after in the first place. You kind of get to, and you're kind of like a bit, this maybe isn't tasting as nice as I thought it kind of was.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And actually, one of the ones that I kept in the back of my mind was, I think Jamie Stegmaier, one of his, he mentioned that, I think it was for viticulture, and it was like his first Kickstarter, and he had like the final stretch goal was going to be metal coins. And luckily they missed it, and he basically did the math afterwards, and now that he knows like how much weight that would add to the box, how much shipping would have increased, he basically, I think he says that they would have lost a bunch of money, and he's not sure if Stonemaier games have been around anymore. And so I think you have to be super careful. And when we originally planned the game, actually one thing that didn't really hurt us a ton, but it's going to make a minor difference, is we had assumed that the game would be under £1. Sure enough, the final version is going to be slightly over £1, which for U.S. shipping means a couple extra bucks as far as going to priority service. But it's something we didn't really plan on, because our prototype was pretty light. But then when you add wood and you add thicker cardstock and thicker cardboard, it adds up. And so then now we'll have to be more aware of that going forward, as when we start kind of planning out, okay, what's the base price, what's the shipping, things like that.
Yeah, no. I mean, Dinosaur Island, I know. When that came through, the deluxe version came with a whole set of coins instead, and it added so much to the weight. It was almost like a health hazard. And I always tell the story about saying to people, here, have a shot of this box and tell me how heavy it is. And they would reach out with one hand, and you'd say, no, you can't take it with one hand. It's like, just give me the box. And you'd see them go, doof. You okay there? Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Do you
need help up?
Exactly. Do you need help up after being through the floor, kind of thing? So I can understand. But I mean, again, it's like when you do your calculations at the beginning, I guess you're calculating for certain weight. You calculate for your dimensions. You forget that adding kind of like, I guess, an extra 20 grams or 50 grams into a box. If you're all of a sudden doing kind of like 5,000 copies of a game, that can add up into kind of some kind of serious kind of tonnage. Then, I mean, obviously, as we said, I take it where are you in the process now with kind of Black Sonata?
So actually, in terms of so they're finishing manufacturing this week actually, and so we got a company in China who's going to pick up a portion of the games and do the shipping to Asia, and they're going to send some games to Australia for sort of local distribution. And then the other games, I think maybe from the rest of them, about a third are going to go to Germany to go out to the European Union, and then the rest are going to come to the United States for United States and Canada. Okay. And we're actually going to do those ourselves out of our house. My wife, luckily, she has an online business where she sells clothing, and so she has like all the whole setup to do shipping for the clothing, and so we're just going to leverage everything she has, and so it's just going to be a long, weekend where all the guys come over and we get beer and pizza, and we just start putting games in and padded mailers and slapping labels on them. So.
Does she know about that yet, or are you still going to tell her?
She does. I don't. At first, when I told her, she was like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." And then as the Kickstarter campaign progressed, she was super excited, and then when I had to remind her, I'm like, you do realize we're going to have to mail out like 1,500 packages. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. Like, make sure you have plenty of labels. Oh, wow. Make sure your printer still is working.
I know. You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're mentioning kind of Australia and obviously Europe, which is obviously not surprising. But, I mean, was there kind of unusual geographical places where people are getting their packages sent to?
No, actually, our breakout was fairly straightforward. I mean, there was, Australia, New Zealand, we had some decent amount, and then, the standard European countries like England, Spain, Italy. Didn't do a whole lot in Asia, but a decent amount, and the bulk obviously was the United States. There's a few randoms here and there, but luckily the company out of China basically has a pretty standard rate for almost anywhere in the world. Right. So. And they were more than happy to help us out and take some of those extra ones that random South American one, random African one here or there.
Uh-huh.
I think there was one on the Cayman Islands, which I thought was kind of interesting, but that was probably the most exotic one that I remember.
Cool. So have you, did you get, I take it you would have got like product kind of samples, so have you actually held in your hands kind of like a final production copy and actually been able to play kind of like a final production copy?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Part of the process was once we got all the files to them and they got some clarification and, we had a few minor adjustments here and there, like the on the board, the graphic and stuff like that. But yeah, they did a production proof and sent it to us, and then we got it back, and we actually found a couple things we wanted to adjust. We had done some things to the files where the coloring on the rule books was a little off, and it was basically had to do with like a transparency that we had put on to kind of like flatten the background. We kind of flattened it too much, and then when we printed it, it looked a little off, and so we went and adjusted the files and then sent them back the final copies. But yeah, no, it was cool to kind of actually see the game and see the tokens and see the cards, and they, the hole punches were perfect, just like they said they could hit them really, really tight, tolerances or whatever, and they hit them, and so that was pretty exciting to see that.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Then going on to like the newer game.
Yep.
Yeah. So was that already decided? When you were going to come out with Maquis?
No.
Was that right? Okay.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty recent development. I had seen that one because as we had actually asked our backers, like, hey, what other print and play games would you love to see a production copy of? Mm-hmm. And overwhelmingly, people were like, you should print Maquis. And so I contacted the designer, Jake, and he got back to me. He's like, yeah, I might be interested in doing that, but I'd want to kind of see how Black Sonata goes. And so we're like, okay, so we'll keep you up to date on the production and the process. And then I kind of kept poking him, and I think he actually contacted John Keane, the Black Sonata designer, and John gave us pretty good praise. Yeah. And so we were able to finally convince Jake. It's like, okay, let's make it happen. And so we've been working with him for the last like month or two to kind of get the contract finalized and details nailed out. And then from there, we're actually Ilya, I can't remember his last name. I think it's Baranova or Barasnova or something like that. He had done the current print and play version that's out there that most people use is his artwork and graphic design. Right. And so then we contacted him as well, and we were like, hey, we'd really love to utilize what you've done for this and do a couple things to help improve some of the, make it a little bit nicer, get a nice box. And then he was like, yeah, I'm totally on board, and he wants to do new art for the cards and kind of give a little more detail. And so they've both been really awesome to work with. But yeah, this was actually a development in the last, for sure, that we knew for sure we were going to do it maybe like 2 months ago. Wow. But before that, it was all kind of like, maybe not. We have a couple games that we signed from the contest, the 54 card contest that we had done last year. And so we knew those were probably going to come out next year, but we'll probably move those a little bit later in the year, and then Maquis will be the next one from us.
Does that mean you're going to be moving up to kind of a couple of Kickstarter campaigns next year?
That's the goal. I think we know we want to do Maquis. We know we want to do at least one, if not both, of the 54 card games we designed. And those are probably a lot lower risk. And if, we get 100 backers, we'll be able to still make it happen. And then John thinks he has a couple expansions that he's been working on for Black Sonata. So we'll probably look maybe later in the year of 2019. Yeah. Doing another Kickstarter for his expansions, and then we'll see if there's enough interest for a reprint. We might do it then, or we should have a moderate amount of copies after this first print run. We might be able to just add them on, as add-ons that people can do after the Kickstarter. So.
So for people who haven't heard of Maquis, do you want to give us kind of like a brief overview of the game itself, how it plays and things like that? Yeah. Yeah, so it's another solo game. It's another kind of small footprint game. Basically, you are resistance fighters for the French resistance of World War II. And so the game is basically, you're going along, there's a map on the board, and you're trying to, each game you'll have 2 mission cards that you have to fulfill. And it might be like gather intel, or, plant explosives, in a certain, like in a factory, or different types of things. And so you're trying to complete objectives and gather resources to complete those objectives. And the interesting mechanic of the game is it's a worker placement, but as you place your workers, every time you place a worker, the local police will go around and they will go to spots on the map. And if they go to the spot you're on, they can capture you and you lose that worker for the rest of the game.
or they might go to a new location. If they go to that location that you're not on, you can no longer hit that one. So you have to kind of plan out your routes as far as, okay, if I go here and the police go to this other location, I need to find a way back. Because every worker, if they can't return back to your home base, and their paths are blocked on the map by policemen, then you're pretty much going to lose that guy.
All right, okay.
And so you start off with 3 workers. You can collect a couple more, but if you start to lose them, then you start your ability to get your missions done are significantly hampered. And so you have to kind of do some route planning. There's some push your luck aspects because like I really have to get to that spot, but there's no way I can guarantee the guy's going to get back. So I have to kind of hope that I can I plan accordingly. I can kind of think about where they've been previously to be able to help kind of map that out. So it's very interesting. And then the last kind of thing is what you can do is you can collect and gather weapons and use that to attack the policeman. And that will allow you to escape and get back to your safe house. However, every time you do that, a policeman, the suspicion for your activities goes up, and a policeman is replaced by a soldier, and you cannot attack the soldiers. The soldiers are much better at, fighting than you, and so you cannot get by a soldier. So you have to balance the fact of, can I get by that policeman today, but now there's going to be a soldier later on that I can't get by. So it's a very interesting kind of balance of gathering resources, route planning, pushing your luck, timing certain moves, and it's really fun. It's a good one.
I mean, with it being kind of already out there in a print and play version, was your approach to play testing it, was that slightly different than having to kind of convince people to kind of sit down and do it? I mean, did you just go out and say, look, we are going to be taking this to Kickstarter and looking at kind of publishing a kind of a fully produced kind of copy here? Was it more of a case of, well, guys, what would you like to see, or what are the things you kind of like, or what are the things you kind of don't like that you do about the game?
Yeah, I think it's definitely very different. Like if you're coming with a new design, it's all about what do the players like, what they don't like, how do you improve the game. Yeah. This one, like I said, I think this one's been around for 5 years, if not more. Yeah. As a print and play, and it's been play tested a ton, so we know the game is tight. There's actually a couple fan-made mission cards that people utilize now, on top of the ones that Jake designed, and we actually contact those designers and we're like, hey, can we use your fan-made mission cards? And they were all for it. And so, I mean, I think the good thing is we're not trying to make this game that we don't know if it's going to be good. Like, the game is good, people enjoy the game, people think highly of it. It's, hey, would you like to trade your, for the people who have already printed it, would you like to trade your printed copy for a production copy? Yeah. And for the people who don't do print and play, this game is solid. This is a real, legit game that's been around. Would you like a copy of it to add to your collection? And so that's kind of how we're approaching it. It's like, let's take this game that's good and get it to more people who know it's good. The people who know it's good and the people who didn't even know it existed.
Do you think that's going to help with the marketing on Kickstarter then, that you've already kind of got an audience there? And then it'll just
I'm hoping so. Yeah, because I think it's very similar to Black Sonata. Black Sonata wasn't as old of a print and play, but it was still around, and a lot of people had printed it out and played it, and was like, yeah, this game's great. And so I think it's just another one of those situations where we can say, hey, this is a game. There's no risk that it's going to be bad. Like, it's a really good game. Do you want to get a copy? And we can get it to you for it's still a small box game, so it's not going to break the bank. And for a backer, I think it's important for lower risk. Like, you hate to spend, you're more willing to risk smaller amounts of money on a product you're not sure about. But to know that the product is actually a solid game. Yeah. Spending, the $20, the $25, it's like a no-brainer for people.
Yeah, yeah. So. No, I can see that. And I think it's difficult for people to... I mean, people will get excited about new ideas on Kickstarter, but I think it's less likely that people get excited about every idea that comes out on Kickstarter. And I think I've seen kind of okay ideas do very, very well on Kickstarter because of kind of marketing. Whereas it's good to see... I mean, is this going to be the kind of the model you're going to kind of follow? Are you going to look for kind of really kind of well-known or well-loved kind of games that are in the print and play and look at kind of taking them into kind of full production? Is that what you see with kind of like side room games?
Yeah, I think that's at least for the in short term, that's our model. I think we're going to try to go for is that, there's a lot of games into these contests. Like another game that I remember is, I think it just finished up a couple months ago called Microbrew. It was a Mint 10 game, and it was like a game that did really well in the design contest for the Mint 10 contest, I think last year.
Yeah.
Or it might have been earlier this year, I can't remember, and they took it to Kickstarter and they raised over $100,000.
Yeah.
And I think there's a market here for, because most of the games you do in these print and plays, they're not these huge beasts that you're going to print and play. They're kind of the smaller box games, but they've been through the rigors, play testing. They've got an audience sort of built in, and they have sort of a pedigree that says, hey, this game it's not some game that nobody's ever played before. Mm-hmm. It's a legit game. We're going to be able to take it to market and take it to production. And so I think that's kind of where we're focusing on right now. We do have a couple designers that we've gotten submissions from and talked to a couple local guys as well who have some designs that we're going to start testing out and seeing if we want to take those to market as well. But I think for this first year or two, we're really going to focus on, okay, let's find these print and play gems that we can then take to Kickstarter and get them out to a bigger audience.
Do you feel restricted on the price you want people to pledge for a copy? Because it is available through print and play, do you have to take that into consideration? It's not necessarily about, obviously, we're going to produce this game for you, but you have to be aware that people, if they really, really wanted to, could, do their own kind of print version on their own stock of cards and stuff like that. Is that something you have to be conscious of as well?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the good thing is that most of the time when you have a print and play like these, people don't want to print out 150 cards.
Yeah.
They're willing to maybe print out 30 or 40 and sleeve those, cards or do something, or maybe make a small board, not like a big, six-fold board, And so I think part of understanding the footprint of the game is important, and then understanding that helps you kind of drive, okay, how much production can we put into it, and it helps kind of guide the stretch goals. So like for Maquis, for example, we'll probably start off the base game as, standard board, cardboard tokens for the major pieces, and then have upgrades to wood because that increases your cost. But be able to have those as, stretch goals so that, some of the components might be wood to start, but to be able to kind of help deluxify it, you need to have that economy of scale, right? So you got to have, the cost at 500 versus the cost at 3,000 or 4,000. So,
yeah.
But I do think you have to take it into account because on these types of situations, it's got to be, you got to have something in that $20 to $30 range. I think I kind of see Kickstarter as either, especially for the newer publishers, I think it's, you have to either start small or you have to go super big. You have to have this giant beast that has a bunch of minis and $100.
Yeah.
Or you have a smaller footprint game that's nice in that $20 to $30 range, and those are kind of the two major pots of the Hank success right now.
That's really interesting. You have to think about it. No, because Mark Neidlinger, the episode we actually just released the other day, that was what his exact. That's what their team exact sentiment is. I think him and both Tom were talking about. You had the choice between kind of, as you said, going for like a minimum spend, a kind of like a max kind of $20 type game just to kind of get your foot in the door, or you could kind of go all out like Vindication or City of Kings or all these kind of other huge, massive kind of games from almost like first time kind of publishers.
Yeah.
I guess kind of changing components, you have to take into consideration kind of sleeving cards and stuff like that. It can kind of bring its own kind of problems as well. Is there a game out there that you would actually kind of take and I guess kind of give it the side room games kind of treatment, that you would improve the kind of what's already out there, and if you had your chance to kind of do that?
Yeah, I think kind of taking it from what we've done previously, like taking these print and play games and turning them into like real products. I think there are some games out there that are like that I've been kind of poking around and trying to find information on, as far as things that are like out of print or that kind of maybe got dropped off from certain publishers. So I've been trying to do as much research as I can there. But yeah, I think there's the holy grail I think everybody and their dog has tried to get is Glory to Rome, and trying to get somebody to get that signed to a contract because of the whole fiasco, I guess, between the designer and the publisher at the time.
Yeah.
But that one's one of those ones that's in limbo. So if I had my wish list for Christmas would be to find a way to get that signed and be able to put that back out the market, because that would be able to be successful.
Probably going to have to be a couple more Christmases before that kind of. I think that before that kind of sees the light of day. I think that would be But imagine if you did. That would be absolutely.
It'd be great. Yeah,
that would kind of be absolutely.
But yeah, I think for us it's all about. And the other thing we also want to focus on too is like getting games from designers who don't have published games. Like some of these guys who have done a lot of designing in their contests in the forums, and kind of done the amateur side, and getting new designers out there and showcasing some of these these guys who haven't had games published before. And so that's another one of our focuses, and I think it's a good thing for us that we can kind of work off this print and play audience and the print and play products that are out there, and kind of start taking those to the broader masses.
Are there ones that are adamant that they're going to self-publish, that you've approached them and they've said no, this is coming to Kickstarter next year and I'm going to absolutely storm it and I kind of don't need your help? Do you come across kind of that at all?
Yeah, actually, it's happened a few times. There was one game that I actually, I won't mention anything specifically, but I kind of really wanted to print that one, and I contacted the designer, and they were kind of on the fence, and they were actually designing another game that they actually had plans to bring to Kickstarter next year. But then the secondary game that was in one of the contests, I was like, hey, this would actually fit in well with kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And they decided, you know what, we're going to wait and see if we can do the Kickstarter on our own. So I can see the advantages and disadvantages of that. Depending on how well the Kickstarter does, your profit margins versus if you do it yourself versus if you just sign a design and take the royalties. There's a balance there, and there's usually a tipping point where it's better to do it yourself versus somebody else. But then you have to worry about building the audience and getting all that, the back end stuff as far as the manufacturing, the logistics, the fulfillment portions put together. So I can definitely see the balancing act, and I even told the person, I was like, hey, if for some reason you change your mind, you decide not to go on your own, please let us know, because we would be more than happy to to take it on and just do a we'll publish you, you're the designer type contract. So, but it definitely happens. People love their babies and their designs, and they want to make sure that they have sort of the full creative control. But that does come with a time and effort cost to be able to make sure you can actually maintain that and get something successful out there.
No, I think there's definitely a market for kind of publishers which work on Kickstarter but have an ability to almost facilitate kind of unknown publishers kind of getting their game kind of developed. I mean, one of the key ones that comes up quite a lot at the moment is Alley Cat Games. They had a phenomenal success really with their roll and write game, the kind of the Welcome to Dinosaur one.
Yeah.
They had Dice Hospital beforehand. They're working on a Coral game at the moment. They've had a couple of pocket games, Pocket Sub, Pocket Farmer, and a lot of these games it's the same situation as you almost. I mean, they've basically taken an idea and they've developed it, and they're kind of creating a kind of a production copy. And I think the discussion that's being had on Kickstarter at the moment is, can somebody from the beginning still get on there and make their money? Do we need guys like yourself and guys like Alley Cat Games? Are they going to become more and more important to allow kind of smaller guys who have brilliant ideas, have brilliant games with excellent mechanics, but just allow them to actually get on and can be published to an audience that's sitting and waiting and has an appetite for kind of like a range of games?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I can't remember who I was reading or listening to, but there was some discussion about, is there just too many games coming out right now? And I think it kind of goes back to, there's a lot of choices, which can be good, but sometimes people can think that's paralyzing. But to me, at the end of the day, I'd rather have a bunch of different games with a different variety of themes and mechanics that you can pick and choose. and to be able to help, it might make things more challenging for the bigger publishers, and they have to kind of rethink their business model. But for the smaller guys who are doing it, just to be able to get games out there that people will enjoy, people will love, and get some of these designers and artists, the recognition they deserve is awesome to me. I mean, this is one of those things where, pipe dreams of doing this full time would be great, but in reality, I understand that this is sort of, we're doing this for fun, we're doing this as a hobby, we're doing this to be able to help, other people get their stuff out there, and just try to be able to facilitate that as best we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody was shook a little bit by the CMON news about them losing money.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a kind of you're making millions. It's like, yes, but the size that you are once you get to our size, it's very little between kind of potentially kind of losing money and I don't know. I think like Pokemon. It's like Pokemon, really. I think Kickstarter isn't in its final form.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly.
I think it's gone through its golden age. I think in the last couple of years, and we've seen some remarkable games coming out. Some absolutely fantastic, wonderful, amazing games coming out. And I think like every kind of platform, it goes kind of through an identity kind of situation where it's sitting there after so many years and goes and looks in the mirror and goes, who am I? Which is why I think you're seeing kind of like the pre-order store coming up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep. We're still pushing things like the Make 100, which is coming, which is coming out, again for a year, which seems to be a good thing. Like John Gilmore's got, he had a campaign on Make 100, so he's making he's making some kind of game for that, which is. I think it was kickstarted last year, so I think people are waiting for it to be fulfilled. But imagine that, one of 100 games that John Gilmore's done, which seems like kind of fantastic. In terms of in terms of like yourselves, would you? I know you said I've kind of like this is the route that we're going down. Would you dust off the little box of delights that you were going to design yourself and actually put it out on Kickstarter one day?
Yeah, of all the games I have made, there was one that was okay, and I'm sure if I kind of tweaked around with it would maybe be a little bit better. It was just sort of a like a word game, in sort of the mold of like a Scrabble. But I had basically created a game where I can't remember the actual name of the game, but instead of laying tiles, you're laying a card that is basically a square card that's like a quadrant where it has different letters in each corner, and you're basically laying cards on top of cards, sort of like to build words. And so then you're basically you have a pawn that you're moving around the cards to basically spell out your words and gather points. And we played it a few times, and it worked really well. Uh-huh. I just at the time it's like, well, there's not really much of an audience for this one, but maybe at one point if we have a pretty big side room games following, maybe I'll publish it under a pseudonym or have like my son publish it or something like that, and we'll call him the designer, and I can have one out there maybe in secret. We'll see.
You just have to go all out. I think you just have to stand proud and say, this is my game.
This is mine.
This is mine.
I did this.
Exactly. This is mine. There are other games like this, but this one is mine. That's cool. I have a question. It's obviously it's Christmas time. Whether you like it or not. Everybody seems to be scared of mentioning the word Christmas. I've no idea. Apparently, holidays. We're allowed to say holidays. We're not allowed to say. Anyway, I have a question for you, sir. Okay.
Yes.
You have, and I've already asked this from somebody else this evening, and he just went, "You what, mate? Shut up." But Santa has turned up. Santa's turned up, Dustin, and what he's saying to you is he says that you've been very good this year, and he's gonna give you a piece of paper, and what you can do is you can write down 3 board games that you would like. They can be any board games at all, from any era. They can be first editions, second editions, okay? And what he will do, he will make sure that on Christmas morning, when you go downstairs in your pyjamas, and you've got your slippers on, and you've got bed hair sticking up at the side, you're a little bit sleepy, that under the tree there's going to be 3 lovely board games wrapped up in fantastic shiny paper with a little lovely tag on the side, And I just need to know, what are those 3 board games going to be that's going to be under the tree?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think the Glory to Rome Black Box Edition would be up there.
Okay.
Just because, I want that game. And then, I want that game so bad, I was trying to troll and find, like, some, print and play files that I could just cobble together and make it happen, like, on some paper, so. But yeah, that one's probably up there. Oh, man. I would really like, actually, my boss turned me on to Twilight Struggle, and so we played that a lot, on our lunch break. Yeah, and so I would love a deluxe version of that, and he actually mentioned it too, like, if somebody would make one that's, like, all, like, wooden bits and nice super board that has, like, the inlay where you can drop in your influence tiles in the board, and super nice, deluxeified version, that would be one if it had actually existed.
Okay.
I think maybe the third, I don't know.
Third one's a charm.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I think maybe I've heard amazing things about, like, the War of the Ring deluxe edition that came out maybe, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, something like that was gone and missing. I thought they might have came back with that one. I'm not sure. That one actually might be available, but some super awesome, deluxe edition where it's one-on-one Sauron versus Frodo and the buddies. I think that would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. That'd be very, very cool indeed. That's fine. We'll make sure that come Christmas morning, they will all be sitting there for you, Dustin.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate
all of them will be sitting there for you. Thanks very much for coming on. If people want to keep an eye on what you're up to on the interweb nets, where do you exist on the interweb nets?
Yeah, so we have sideroomgames.com. So we have our site up there. Not a whole lot going on there, but I think one of our guys, Brett, on the team, he's working on the e-commerce backend, so that way when we actually have the Black Sonata and other games in-house, you can buy some for there. But we're there, and then we're also Facebook. It should be Sideroom Games on Facebook, and then as well as at Sideroom Games at Instagram and Twitter. So we're usually all over there. I'm usually posting random shots on Instagram of me and the boys playing games that we find tucked away. And
cool.
Usually one of them's super happy and one of them's super sad, so it's always entertaining.
Cool. Good. What we'll do is we'll make sure that we take all of those links and we'll put them in the show notes so that we have notes to show. If you want to keep an eye, an ear, a nose on what we're up to, it's been a long day. Go to the internet webs, go to the Googles, search for We're Not Wizards. You will find us on Twitter, We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Facebook, guess what? We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on Instagram, guess what? We're Not Wizards. You'll find us on YouTube, guess what? We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast, eh? Didn't expect that, did you? You can go to our website, which is we'renotwizards.com, or wearedefinitelywizards.com. Apparently goes there too. Thanks, Jeremy. You can go to our blog, which is we'renotwizards.blogspot.com, where we write stuff about things. If you want to listen to us, which you're kind of doing now, and I never get why I even say this, but you can kind of get us on all these little podcast catchers like Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast, and then there's Spotify. We're on Spotify. I have no idea why either. There's just one of these magical things that happens. And we're on things like Podknife and Podbean, who are fantastic podcast hosts. If you like us even more, if you consider going to Apple Podcasts and dropping us a subscription, because that guarantees you're on the good list. Just telling you now. If you like us even more than that, consider giving us a rating or a review. If you are going to be giving us a rating or a review, don't give us 10 stars, because it makes us big-headed. But at the same time, do not give us 1, because it makes me cry. Give us something like, a 5, because it's in the middle and it's average, and we're just a little bit average. But the person who's not been average today is rather wonderful, rather fantastic, Mr. Dustin Culbertson. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you, Richard. I've had a good time, for sure.
Good. There's only 2 more things to do. The first thing is to remember that we are many things. Yep, certainly been called a few things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Dustin?
I'm not a wizard?
Nah, you didn't sound so sure. And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Dustin. Say goodbye, Dustin.
Goodbye, Dustin.
Every single time. Do you have a memo between you lot that goes out? Remember, if you go on the show to say the funny joke at the end? Anyway, and it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll6s.com, and Maquis is coming on February from Side Room Games. So make sure you check it. Yeah, because I was like thinking about that, and I was thinking, wasn't the Maquis the names of the Resistance folk in Deep Space Nine as well?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. There's a bit of that's probably where it came from. You know, that's
maybe that's a promo card down the road.
Oh my word, can it be? Do you know what I mean? And then you could jump in and just say they've got a phaser gun, so they win. Automatically wipe out the enemy. That would be brilliant. But anyway, I mean, if you want to find out if the promo card is going to exist, you're going to have to come back in February and check out the Kickstarter. Yeah. That's exactly the only way this is going to happen. So do that. But until the next time, goodbye.
A wizard is never late. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.